I never meant to fall asleep in her bed that night. But what she whispered to me at midnight, words I never thought I'd hear from the Ice Queen herself, changed everything between us forever. If you're enjoying this story of unexpected connection and second chances, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt stories that remind us how life can change in a single moment. The first time I met Victoria Winters, she fired 3 people. I stood in the doorway of the conference room, resume clutched in my sweaty palm, watching as she dismissed them with clinical efficiency. No raised voice. No dramatic gestures. Just cold, precise words that cut through the air like a surgeon's scalpel. Your performance doesn't meet our standards. Clear your desk by noon. The 3 shell-shocked employees filed past me, one woman already fighting back tears. Victoria's steel-gray eyes flicked up, noticing me for the first time. You must be Daniel Parker. Her voice carried no warmth. You're 2 minutes late. My throat went dry. I'm sorry, Ms. Winters. My daughter's school called in. I don't need excuses, Mr. Parker. I need punctuality. She gestured to the chair across from her. Sit. That was 6 months ago. Somehow, despite that inauspicious beginning, I got the job as Victoria's executive assistant at Apex Innovations. The pay was better than anything I'd found since Emma's mother walked out 3 years ago, leaving me to raise our daughter alone. The hours were brutal, but the salary meant I could finally afford after-school care for Emma and maybe even start saving for her college fund. Victoria Winters was 35, unmarried, and the youngest CEO in the company's history. The office whispered she'd clawed her way to the top through ruthless ambition and an inhuman work ethic. They called her the Ice Queen, Frostbite, the human calculator, all behind her back, of course. To her face, everyone was unfailingly polite and terrified. I quickly learned the rules for surviving as Victoria's assistant: anticipate her needs before she voiced them, never make the same mistake twice, and keep personal matters strictly outside the office. The last rule proved the hardest. Daddy? Emma's voice crackled through my phone one Tuesday afternoon as I sat at my desk outside Victoria's office. Mrs. Peterson says I have a fever. She says you need to come get me. I glanced at Victoria's closed door. She was in the middle of preparing for the Henderson presentation, the biggest potential client of the year. The meeting was tomorrow, and she'd made it clear she needed my help until late tonight. I'll be right there, sweetheart, I whispered, already gathering my things. Tell Mrs. Peterson I'm on my way. I knocked softly on Victoria's door. Enter, came her clipped response. She didn't look up from her laptop as I stepped inside. Ms. Winters, I'm sorry, but I have a family emergency. My daughter is sick at school, and I need to pick her up. Her fingers paused over the keyboard. The Henderson presentation is tomorrow, Daniel. I know. I'm truly sorry. I can work remotely once I get her settled. Do what you need to do. Her tone was flat, dismissive. Email me what you've completed so far. I nodded, backing out of the room, feeling the familiar weight of failing at both parts of my life, being a good father and a good employee. Emma was flushed and miserable when I picked her up, her small body radiating heat. The thermometer read 102.3 degrees Fahrenheit. I gave her children's fever reducer and tucked her into bed with her favorite stuffed rabbit. Don't go, Daddy, she mumbled, her eyes already heavy with sleep. I'm not going anywhere, I promised, smoothing her damp hair back from her forehead. I set up my laptop on the kitchen table and worked through the evening, sending Victoria updates every hour. Around midnight, my phone rang. These projections are incomplete, Victoria said without preamble. And there are inconsistencies in the market analysis section. I rubbed my eyes. I'm sorry. Emma's fever spiked again, and I had to. I need these corrections by morning, Daniel. The Henderson meeting is at 9. Yes, Ms. Winters. I understand. Good. She paused. How high is your daughter's fever? The question caught me off guard. Victoria had never once asked about Emma. It was 103.5 the last time I checked. Another pause. Have you called her pediatrician? The after-hours line said to bring her to the ER if it goes above 104 or doesn't respond to medication. I see. Her voice remained neutral. The Henderson file needs to be perfect by morning, Daniel. The call ended. I checked on Emma again, still sleeping but burning up, then forced myself back to the laptop. My eyes blurred as I stared at spreadsheets and market projections. At some point, I must have dozed off because a sharp knock at my door jolted me awake. I stumbled to answer it, disoriented and confused. It was 2:17 a.m. Victoria Winters stood in my doorway, her usual impeccable appearance slightly rumpled. She wore a dark coat over what looked like silk pajamas, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail instead of her typical severe bun. Ms. Winters? I blinked, certain I was hallucinating. You weren't answering your phone. She held up a plastic pharmacy bag. I brought children's fever medication, electrolyte drinks, and cooling patches. The pharmacist recommended them. I stared at her, speechless. Are you going to invite me in, Daniel? It's freezing out here. I stepped aside, still struggling to process that my ice-cold CEO was standing in my modest apartment in the middle of the night, bringing medicine for my sick child. Victoria surveyed my small living room with its second-hand furniture and Emma's toys neatly stacked in colorful bins. Her expression revealed nothing. Where is your daughter? This way, I said, finding my voice at last. I led her to Emma's bedroom, decorated with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling and butterfly decals on the walls. Victoria approached the bed cautiously, as if Emma might bite. My daughter stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Daddy, she mumbled. I'm here, sweetheart. This is... I hesitated. This is Ms. Winters from Daddy's work. Emma regarded Victoria with feverish curiosity. Are you the boss lady? A flicker of something, amusement, crossed Victoria's face. Yes, I suppose I am. Daddy says you're very smart but scary sometimes. I felt my face heat up. Emma. Your father is right, Victoria interrupted, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. I can be scary. But not to little girls with fevers. She sat carefully on the edge of the bed and opened the pharmacy bag. I brought you some medicine that might help you feel better. To my astonishment, Victoria helped me coax Emma into taking the medication and applying the cooling patches. She even held the electrolyte drink while Emma sipped through a straw. My mother was a nurse, Victoria explained when she caught me staring. I picked up a few things. After Emma drifted back to sleep, we retreated to the living room. Victoria glanced at my laptop, still open to the Henderson presentation. You need sleep, Daniel. You can't function like this. The presentation. I've already finished the corrections. She pulled out her tablet. I realized after our call that I was being unreasonable. Your daughter is sick. The presentation can wait. I sank onto the couch, suddenly overwhelmed by exhaustion and confusion. Why are you here, Ms. Winters? She didn't answer immediately, her fingers tracing the edge of her tablet. When I was 8, I had pneumonia. My father was working 3 jobs after my mother died. He couldn't afford to miss work, so I stayed with neighbors or alone. Her voice remained even, but something in her eyes had softened. No child should have to be sick alone. It was the most personal thing she'd ever shared with me. I didn't know how to respond. You should rest, she said, standing. I'll check on Emma before I leave. You don't have to go, I heard myself say. It's late, and you've already come all this way. The couch pulls out into a bed. Victoria hesitated, then nodded. That would be practical. We both need to be alert for the Henderson meeting. I found her spare blankets and a pillow, then checked on Emma one more time. Her fever had dropped slightly, and she was sleeping peacefully. When I returned to the living room, Victoria was sitting rigidly on the edge of the pull-out bed, looking distinctly uncomfortable. "Thank you," I said quietly. "For the medicine and for understanding about the presentation." She nodded stiffly. "Get some rest, Daniel." I retreated to my bedroom but couldn't sleep. The image of Victoria Winters, the feared Ice Queen, sitting gently on my daughter's bed and holding a drink for her kept replaying in my mind. It didn't fit with the woman who fired people without blinking and demanded perfection at all costs. A soft sound from Emma's room had me on my feet instantly. I found Victoria already there, adjusting Emma's blanket as my daughter whimpered in her sleep. "Her fever's rising again," Victoria whispered. Together, we spent the next hour taking turns applying cool compresses to Emma's forehead and checking her temperature. When it finally began to drop, we both sagged with relief. "You're good at this," I said as we stood in the hallway outside Emma's room. "I told you, my mother was a nurse." "It's more than that. You care." Victoria's expression closed off. "We should both try to get some sleep." "The Henderson meeting." "Forget the Henderson meeting for a minute," I interrupted, surprising both of us. "Why do you pretend to be so cold all the time when clearly you're not?" Her eyes flashed. "You don't know me, Daniel. I know you drove across town at 2 in the morning to bring medicine to a sick child you've never met. That's not the action of someone who doesn't care." Victoria turned away. "Good night, Daniel." I should have let her go. Instead, I caught her wrist gently. "Victoria." She stilled at the sound of her first name on my lips. In 6 months, I'd never once called her anything but Ms. Winters. "Thank you," I said simply. Something shifted in her expression, vulnerability replacing her usual mask of control. For a breathless moment, we stood there in my narrow hallway, the distance between boss and employee blurring into something undefined. Then Emma called out, breaking the spell. "Daddy? I'm thirsty." We both moved toward her room, colliding awkwardly in the doorway. Victoria's hand brushed against mine, and I felt an unexpected jolt of awareness. If she felt it too, she gave no sign. The rest of the night passed in a blur of checking temperatures, administering medicine, and brief snatches of sleep. Somehow, we both ended up dozing in chairs pulled up to Emma's bed. When I woke just before dawn, Victoria was curled uncomfortably in the small chair, her usual perfect posture abandoned in sleep. She looked younger, softer, human in a way I'd never seen at the office. Emma's fever had broken. I touched Victoria's shoulder gently to wake her. "Her temperature's normal," I whispered when her eyes opened. Relief washed across her face before her professional mask slipped back into place. She checked her watch and stood, wincing slightly. "The Henderson meeting is in 4 hours. We should prepare." Just like that, the Ice Queen had returned. We worked side by side at my kitchen table while Emma slept peacefully. Victoria was all business, focused entirely on the presentation, as if the night's vulnerability had never happened. By 8 o'clock, we were both showered and dressed for work, Victoria in a spare outfit from her car, me in my only decent suit. Emma was feeling well enough to watch cartoons on the couch, her fever gone but her energy still low. "Mrs. Peterson said she can come stay with Emma until you get home," I told Victoria as we prepared to leave. "She's my elderly neighbor, she watches Emma sometimes." Victoria nodded briskly. "Good. We should arrive separately. I'll go first." She knelt beside Emma before leaving. "Feel better, Emma?" My daughter smiled shyly. "Thank you for helping me, boss lady." The Henderson meeting was a success. Victoria was brilliant, commanding the room with her usual authority and precision. No one would have guessed she'd spent the night in a cramped apartment, tending to a sick child. I kept my professional distance, the perfect executive assistant, but I couldn't help noticing the occasional glance she sent my way, questioning, uncertain. For weeks afterward, Victoria maintained her usual cool demeanor at work. If anything, she seemed more distant, assigning projects through email rather than in person, scheduling fewer one-on-one meetings. But sometimes I'd catch her watching me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Then came the Westfield crisis. A major client threatened to pull their business over a contract dispute. The entire executive team worked around the clock to salvage the relationship. On the third night, Victoria and I were the last ones in the office, reviewing legal documents until the words blurred before my eyes. "You should go home to Emma," Victoria said suddenly, looking up from her computer. "She's staying with her grandmother this week," I explained. "My ex-mother-in-law still likes to see her, even though her daughter isn't in the picture anymore." Victoria nodded, returning to her work. After a moment, she asked, "How long has your wife been gone?" "Ex-wife," I corrected. 3 years. Emma was 4 when Lisa decided family life wasn't for her after all. That must have been difficult. I shrugged. "We manage. Emma's resilient. Like her father." Our eyes met across the conference table. There it was again, that undefined something that had sparked between us the night of Emma's fever. "We should order dinner," Victoria said, breaking the moment. "This will be a long night." We ate Thai food from cartons, discussing strategy for the Westfield situation. As the night wore on, Victoria gradually relaxed, her voice losing its professional edge. She kicked off her heels under the table and rolled up the sleeves of her silk blouse. "Tell me about Emma," she said as we took a break around midnight. "What's she like?" The question surprised me, but I found myself smiling. "She's curious about everything. Loves science experiments and fairy tales equally. Has strong opinions about which dinosaurs would make the best pets." "Which ones?" "Triceratops. Apparently, they're like rhinos but friendlier." Victoria laughed, a genuine sound I'd never heard before. It transformed her face, softening the sharp angles and lighting up her eyes. "What about you?" I asked. "Any family besides your father?" Her smile faded. "No. My father passed away 5 years ago. There's no one else." "I'm sorry." She waved away my sympathy. "It was a long time ago. And I have Apex. The company is my family now." "That sounds lonely," I said before I could stop myself. Victoria's expression closed off. "We should get back to work." The Westfield crisis was resolved the next day. Things returned to normal, except they didn't, not really. Small changes began to appear in our working relationship. Victoria started asking about Emma occasionally. She became more flexible about my schedule when school events came up. Once, she even sent me home early when Emma had a dance recital. "Family matters, Daniel," she said simply when I thanked her. In turn, I began to see beyond Victoria's icy exterior to the dedicated, brilliant woman beneath. I noticed how she remembered every employee's name, how she fought for better benefits for the staff, how she mentored young women in the company with tough but fair guidance. 3 months after the night of Emma's fever, Victoria called me into her office late on a Friday afternoon. "I need you to accompany me to the Blackwell Foundation Gala tomorrow night," she announced without preamble. The Blackwell Gala was the social event of the year for our industry, a black tie fundraiser attended by every major player in the business. "Of course," I replied, already mentally cataloging the preparations I'd need to make. "I'll coordinate with the event planners and prepare briefing notes on the key attendees." "No," Victoria said, looking uncharacteristically hesitant. "I mean, yes to those things, but I'm asking you to attend with me. As my +1. I stared at her. "Your date?" A faint blush colored her cheeks. "My companion for the evening. In a professional capacity, of course." Of course, I echoed, trying to ignore the sudden acceleration of my heartbeat. What about Emma? The gala runs from 7 to midnight. Would your neighbor be available to watch her? I nod.